I want to talk about my opinion of why I think the Democratic Party has become so unhinged over the last couple of years. And I think it comes down to uh, essentially a creation of expectations uh, that were not remotely in line with reality. And essentially, I guess rather than talk around, it's a lot easier to actually explain the sequence of events. Um, so if we go back before the Obama years, essentially there's a progressive wing of the Democratic Party, and then there's kind of a hyper progressive wing, and the hyper progressive wing uh, wants everything and they want it now, whereas the progressive wing pretty much has kept the brakes on things, tempering the expectations of the hyper progressives, preventing them from becoming a major impact, or at least a negative impact. And so the sequence of events that's happened probably since uh, Roosevelt was out of office was that the progressives would advance, they would take ground, and then at some point they would overstep. And when they overstep, they realize, oh, we went a little bit too far that time. We just lost. We'll back off. We'll sit back for a little bit, uh, pretend that we're at a new status quo, and then they would start doing their advances again until it blew up, etc., etc. The cycle would go over and over again. And of course, the hyper progressives are never happy with this, but the progressives were able to keep them in line. So, one of the themes for keeping the hyper progressives agitated and contributing to the effort was this idea of racism. Uh, Not merely that there were a lot of racists in this country, but that the system itself was inherently racist, and that everything in the country revolves and completely around race. And so then when you have something like a Bill Clinton followed by a George W. Bush, uh, you basically work these people up into a frenzy so that they kick in what monetary donations they can, and they throw in a lot of time to the party because the threat is just horrid. These racists are all over the place, getting ready to just run amok and destroy everything, and it's just their effort that's just barely keeping it in check. So then Obama wins. And so this throws kind of a monkey wrench in things. How is it that this horribly racist country, that institutions are racist to the core, all the way down to the very foundations of everything? It's racism all the way or through through everything. How did this happen? And so their new internal narrative started developing. So when Obama wins a second time, they kind of lost reality at that point. They came to this conclusion that, wait a minute, all these racists we've been battling for the last couple of decades, if we can put Obama in office two times in a row, we must completely outnumber them now. We must be so powerful that we can do anything we want from now on. Any idea, no matter how radical, no matter how crazy, no matter how far out, we can push it forward because there's not enough of them to stop us anymore. Uh, we don't even have to be civil to them. We can be horrible to them. We can say horrible, awful things. We can commit physical violence against them because we are all powerful. We can never be defeated again. We completely dominate. Then Trump wins. It broke them when this happened. So now all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, the racists came back. They all came flying in from somewhere, and suddenly they're everywhere. And so this racist narrative gets interwoven with every single thing Trump does, no matter how tiny it is. And they just are absolutely out of their minds over this because they were so convinced that they were totally unbeatable that they thought Hillary Clinton couldn't be beat by anybody. And when she was, it was more than they could take. So we see this completely uh, unproportional and literally crazy reaction. We've got riots, and we have the media going, "Oh yeah, there's nothing happening. Yeah, they're burning the cities down. Yeah, that's it's the voice of the unheard." Yeah, that's taken completely out of context, that quote. But anyway, so uh, and I believe that no, I'd say now we're starting to see the pendulum is swinging in the direction against this hyper progressive movement. We may be actually seeing the first real split between the liberal and the progressive wings of the Democratic Party. And I think the hyper progressives are going to keep going forward because they believe that they're literally outside of history at this point, that their dominance was so overwhelming that historical forces are no longer in play. Uh, and I think pretty much that sums up where we're at this moment. Um, in a future video, I'll talk about essentially what we're looking at is probably a political party realignment, and probably is a be good opportunity to also do a video talking about the various uh, wings within the political parties. Um, because obviously there's a lot of terms that are horribly abused and aren't being used the way they're actually meant. So a good definition of what's the difference between liberal and progressive is probably in order as well. Well, I hope you found this interesting enough that you will look at some of my other videos that follow along with this. Thank you much for your time, and thank you for watching.